Giant show today. We talk about Marquette, the big preview coming up, the rebound against Villanova. And we also talk women. Tony Bozzella's squad got a win. We're filming this on Sunday. But first, let's vibe. Welcome, everyone, to the latest and greatest episode of Pirate Vibes here on the Big East Energy Network. We are back from the Festivus debacle, the Christmas season, and we're joined by Pat Madden and the Yankee Swap champion, Tim Best. Tim, how are you?
Doing great now that I have this wonderful, I chose to take this little guy who I've affectionately named Billy. But I don't know how much this costs, but whatever it is, it's worth every penny. Just listen to this thing. It's the best. So even with people who got like heated blankets and all that, for me personally, I came out a winner. And yeah, hopefully this is a tradition in my household that keeps going for a lot longer. This is the first year we did it. So it was a rousing success to say the least.
I hope Nick and Andy don't comment and try to fight you. The DePaul guys from Chicago don't try to fight you for Billy Goat, although apparently he's a curse with Cubs fans. So maybe you're safe.
So they won the title. They won the title, so like it's all.
I think they're okay now. I think they are.
Yeah. It took 100 years, but they're okay. And Pat Madden, Pat, how are you? You're done traveling?
Yes.
Time we saw you, you were all over the place.
Correct. Yes, I'm remaining in the state of New Jersey for the foreseeable future.
For the rest of the year.
Yes.
So we're going to dive right in. We're going to talk Marquette. We're going to talk a little bit of Tony Bozzella's squad, the women's squad, and then, of course, everyone's favorite segment, Sign Mafia's back. We haven't really done an episode in, 2 weeks now. This will come out on Tuesday, the Thursday before the Villanova show. Any recap real quick before we dive into Marquette, just because Villanova was a big game. Any quick things now that we saw it a week ago now? Anything that still stands out? Anything else you left to be said, Pat?
I think we pretty much said it all. It's of course the transition to things a little bit before Tim maybe jumps in. I think this is we'll see again how Seton Hall deals with adversity. They have to make a road trip, which is not usually the easiest road trip on their schedule, but given where Marquette is right now, that might not be the trip to Fiserv in Milwaukee may not be the daunting task that one might have thought it would have been at the beginning of the season or has been for several straight years during the Shaka Smart era.
Fair enough. What about you, Tim? Anything?
I don't know. I got nothing. I thought the live post game that we did with the Holy Nova crew, I thought I was really good, a lot of fun. But yeah, I think I said everything that needed to be said. And we're on to Marquette.
Talking about Marquette. So talking about Marquette, obviously Marquette right now is probably considered the worst team in the conference. Would you guys agree with that right now? I know, Pat, you cover all of them on the Big East blog.
Yeah, they're having the wheels are coming off at Marquette. And if you think things were bad, given the fact that they've lost their first two Big East games, they were somewhat competitive against Georgetown, but then they went down the Creighton and got blown out by 20. They lose one of their starters in Xavier Lowry. That news came out right about 6 o'clock this afternoon that Lowry has left the team. Was averaging 8 points a game. He didn't start the Georgetown game. I don't think he played the Creighton game. So he might have been on the outs up to a couple of weeks ago. It's certainly, with the number of people who have been making serious contributions from Marquette, which is not many, losing a guy, I think, who is their third or fourth leading scorer is just going to make things that much worse for them. Again, the one guy you got to keep an eye on for Marquette is the freshman Nigel James Jr., who has been a revelation at the point guard position for Marquette. They were not sure when Sean Jones came back a little bit more slowly from his knee surgery, that they were going to have effective point guard play. But that is the one bright spot that Marquette's really had this season. It'll be interesting to see how Bud Clark responds, given that he had major struggles against Acadian Lewis, a bigger guard, at that Villanova game on Tuesday night.
Can we agree that Acadian Lewis is way above Nigel James, though, at the end of the day? Would you agree with that, though? Acadian Lewis, you said it. You were there in Newark. He was the best player on the court. I don't think Nigel James is going to be that guy.
That's a, again, that's sort of a question. I mean, Lewis is definitely ahead of James right now, but this is not to dismiss what James has been able to do for Marquette. He's been their best player. He's been better than Chase Ross in recent play for Marquette. So he and Ross are probably the two guys you have to focus the most on. Royce Parnham, their small forward, can go off. He's got shooting ability. He hasn't shown that he can score inside as well. But again, this is the type of game that, when Marquette's down, you have to kick them while they're down. You cannot just sort of like breeze into a game like this and expect to get a win because Marquette is struggling. I mean, Seton Hall gave people some tough games last season, even though Seton Hall Marquette looks to be almost as bad, if not worse, than what Seton Hall looked like last year. But that doesn't mean you can't sleep on them because they have a few guys who can score.
They definitely can. They're 336 in field goal percentage in the country right now. They're shooting 41% from the floor and 315th in three-point percentage in the country. It sounds a lot like Seton Hall last year, except that this is what Shaka has recruited. He didn't bring anyone. At least Shaka can say last year that he brought in a lot of those guys for that year. These are guys that, Shaka sat at their kitchen table. Like, this is a little different. Tim, your take on Marquette going into this big matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think to just regurgitate a lot of the narrative that has surrounded this team is just, it's flabbergasting to see a Shaka Smart coach team be this bad. They haven't been this bad since either year one of the Wojo era or the last year of the Wojo era. It's a toss-up. I'd probably lean towards year one because of the fact that they were, like, I think tied for 9th out of 10 teams at the time. And they went 4-14 in the league and, well under 500 overall. Their offense was anemic. It's so bizarre to see them that they're averaging almost 77 points a game, given, some of the statistics that you pointed out being among the lower end of teams nationally in field goal percentage and 3-point field goal percentage. It's kind of shocking given how many points they're putting up on a nightly basis. Chase Ross, you point out, he's averaging almost 17 points a game, but over the last 4 games, he's been bad, man. I mean, 12 points against Wisconsin, 10 points against Purdue, and then just 4 and 9 in their first 2 Big East games. And the game against Georgetown, by the way, he was 1 for 11 from the floor. And he wasn't that much better against Creighton, shooting 23% overall for the game. Yeah, he is ice cold. And I think Marquette, they go and run as far as he will take them. And right now, his play is driving them into the ground. I don't want to, bury a player like that because he's obviously a very talented guy. But when he's struggling, you see how bad Marquette has been. I mean, during this 4-game losing streak, their average margin of defeat is, 20 plus 40, 29. They're losing by an average of 17.5 points a game the last 4 games. So they need this one. I talked about the fact before that on the post-game show after the Nova game, they are desperate for a win. But now that this additional variable has been thrown in with Zaid Lowry leaving the program, that's got to be demoralizing, even more demoralizing than just this 4-game losing streak. So I think that extra wrinkle will definitely favor the Pirates. And One last thing, I know that Pat talked about Nigel James Jr. He's from Huntington, New York, so like he's got, he's not far from Seton Hall. He grew up not far from there. So this game might be a little personal. Not as personal as matching up with St. John's will be down the line, but that local connection could be interesting. And I think when he talked about the matchup of Bud Clark, I think it'll be much better for Bud going against him compared to a Caden Lewis.
Pat, looking at the experience gap, I want to make sure this is accurate because Marquette is the 294th youngest team. Do you believe that? Like they are really that young? And
No,
while Seton Hall is the 42nd oldest, which is crazy to say out loud.
The comment that was made about Marquette was that they have some, they're in some like top 50 in continuity.
Yep.
Because everyone there except for James, and I forgot who the other freshman they have who gets a lot of minutes is. I think it's not Owens. I don't think they have another freshman who's been getting some minutes for them. But like everyone else who was a contributor was there last season. Ross, Ben Gold, Parnham, a guy we haven't mentioned in Trey Norman. We're talking. All those guys are back, at least playing their second, third, or fourth seasons under Smart. So they have a lot of continuity as a unit, but they also are dealing like Parnham's a sophomore. Caden Hamilton, I think, is a sophomore. James is a freshman, as we mentioned. So they do have a lot of younger players. Last time I heard a podcast about Marquette, which was about a month ago, one of the comments that they made was Marquette is really playing as much for a year or two down the line, assuming that Smart can keep all of these players in the program. So they're trying to build, and that's something you're going to see more and more of if they continue to stay near the bottom of the Big East and have struggles winning games, is you're just going to see them. They're going to be playing more for next season, hopefully. And it's going to cause Smart probably to back off on Chase Ross a little bit, back off on Ben Gold a little bit. I know Gold didn't start the Creighton game as an example. So it'll be interesting to see how Smart is going to play the rest of this season out.
Tim, obviously you talk about Shaka Smart, you talk about Havoc defense. Right now they're creating 9 steals a game. But the thing is, me and you have talked about this a few times, points per turnover. When you create a turnover, are you being able to score? They're not able to score. Do you see that trend continuing against Bud Clark and the Seton Hall Pirates where they won't be able to transition into those steals into points?
I'll say yes, mainly because of the fact that Seton Hall, with how they defend and how gritty they are and relentless, among many other adjectives, Shaheen Holloway-led teams will not allow themselves to give up points off turnovers. And if they do, they're going to try to make them earn it rather than just, Villanova got a decent amount of breakaways during that game that we all saw this past Tuesday up at the Rock. So I think with Marquette, Seton Hall is just not going to allow them to, get those points off turnovers that they desperately need in order to flip a game in their favor, compared to Seton Hall does the exact opposite, where, they get turnovers and they do a very good job of scoring off those turnovers. They have to rank among the top half of the Big East, if not among the top 100 teams in the country in terms of converting points off turnovers. If that's not a stat that is tracked nationally and at each conference level, it definitely should be, because I think it's a very important and underrated stat.
Tim, you talk about the war, and you talk about coming out of the halftime, those first 4 minutes. Fun fact about Marquette. Marquette is 5-1 if they're leading at the first under 16-minute timeout. So if they start off well, they can compete. They're 5-1. They're 0-7 when they're losing after 4 minutes into the game. Is that because of the young team, do you think? Or do you think it's just they're not deep enough? They can't come back? Because right now they're relying on basically 6 players, wouldn't you say? They're not extremely deep.
I like that assessment. Yeah, because when you have less bodies, you're bound to get more fatigued as the game goes on, and you can have all the energy in the world to start a game. Like hell, you might get off to a red hot start where you knock a few shots down, you get the home crowd going, and I'm curious to see what that Fiserv Forum crowd is going to be like, considering how lackluster this team has been to start the season. And to go back to it's winter break, which I know is like, it's kind of a weak excuse because look what happened with the Seton Hall game against Villanova. I mean, they still packed almost 11K in the building. Students seem to really show out for it. Thank God that Seton Hall is a commuter school where you can just transfer your tickets to some of the locals and they'll gladly take the tickets off your hands since if you're from out of town, like I was my freshman year, although I became a diehard, was able to go to games over break as time went on. But yeah, I don't know how the ticket transfer system is now at Seton Hall, but I digress. But with this Fiserv Forum crowd, Marquette fans are extremely loyal, among the most loyal in the entire conference. So I'm curious to see how they'll be the day before New Year's Eve, first game after the holiday break. And that Marquette team, they got to keep them engaged throughout the game, because if they get off to a hot start, get them going early, but then Seton Hall quiets them, I think that's going to take the air out, not just out of the building, but out of Marquette's team as well, especially as the game goes on and they get even more fatigued. I think the crowd, they could get more fatigued if things start spiraling out of control. So I think for Marquette, don't overexert yourself and get off to a blistering start to the game and then realize, oh crap, we got 35 more minutes and we got to keep this up if we really got to win this game. So they really got to pace themselves and not allow Seton Hall to, speed them up and force them into making mistakes which is something that Seton Hall has done so well for all but one game this season.
Yeah. Pat, give me one matchup that you look forward to where it's going to really judge how the game's going. Is there a distinct matchup? Is it the point guard battle? Is Najee Hines going to come back? Is it the paint battle? Give me one battle that you kind of look at.
I mean, the only one that's really interesting to me is Clark against James.
Yeah.
It's a difference between, again, James, the young guy. James, again, probably not as talented, definitely not as big as Acadian Lewis at Villanova. But, you got a similar principle here. You have a hotshot freshman who's been, doing some damage for Marquette going against a veteran like Bud Clark, who is not giving up as many inches to James as he was against Lewis. And I think Clark is going to be motivated on Tuesday night because he does. I think he's the type of player who's going to take a game like Tuesday night personally, and has probably been working doubly hard in practice over the last week in order to make sure that he's ready for the rest of Big East play.
So two things before, I don't know how much more there is to say about the match, but two things. Number one, I think amongst, my Sign Mafia brothers, that I went to school with, the one thing they pointed out was with the Villanova game, and speaking of Najee Hines, his absence turns out a lot more impactful than any of us could ever anticipate. Yeah, I know that God's will, came back, but he only gave us 3 minutes, and Stephon Payne wasn't at his best. That's why Hines would have been a great backup piece to have, but unfortunately he wasn't available for the team, and I think that hurt him a lot more than the fans and I feel like even the team anticipated. So that's the one thing I probably would have wanted to mention on the last episode we had, but to go back to the point guard matchup, as I've kind of realized, being a New York Knicks fan and seeing the big breakout game that Tyler Kolek had on Christmas Day for the Knicks, it got me thinking, especially as we talked about this point guard matchup here, Tyler Kolek was a lot more impactful of a point guard and player on the Marquette program than anyone anticipated because of the fact that look what happened after he graduated. They really didn't have a true point guard. And yes, they had a lot of talent when you got guys like Cam Jones and Stevie Mitchell, but they weren't that elite team that they had been the 2 years prior with Kolek running the show. And now you lost Cam Jones and Stevie Mitchell. Kolek's 2 years gone. And now look at them. They are, free falling, if you will. And now you got to put all your faith at the point guard position in a freshman. He's a damn good point guard. I will give him that credit. But, man, it's just not the same as having a guy like Tyler Kolek running the show and, being that impact leader, as that upperclassman, especially in 23 and 24. So, just in a little astute observation I want to make, because I wanted to give Kolek a shout out. I've talked to him at Big East Media Day multiple years in 22 and 23. And considering, he's a breakout guy for my Knicks, just thought I'd give him his flowers and, make a point that having a great point guard like him makes all the difference in the world. And now it's hurting Marquette. And not only that, having a great point guard now at Seton Hall, look at where it's gotten them so far.
Fair enough. So advanced metrics are saying that this is a 13.89 difference on a neutral court, point difference. Seton Hall is favored by 13 points using analytics. Do you think it's going to be that? I think it's going to be closer than this. I know the spread's not out yet as of when I created my notes, but the analytics are saying it's a 13-point game on a neutral court. Do you think it's that kind of game, or do you think it's going to be closer to that? I tend to lean towards it's going to be kind of like Villanova, what Villanova did to us, that they are comfortable the entire way, and then Marquette's able to close the gap, and it looks a lot prettier than it is. You guys take on the score?
According to Haslametrics, which I use they have a similar game predictor that KenPom does, but Haslametrics doesn't cost. Haslametrics is free. Shout out to Eric Haslam, by the way, a Wisconsin guy who would love to see Marquette get their butts kicked. He would predict the score of Tuesday night's game as 73-65 Seton Hall.
8 points.
8-point spread. I mean, again, the question is, what is Marquette's motivation coming into the game on Tuesday night? Are they still sort of playing for something, or are they basically checking out? And I think the guy to keep an eye on obviously is Chase Ross. Is Chase Ross still trying to make something of it, or is Chase Ross sort of holding back for, when he's thinking about, the G League or Europe or wherever he's thinking about going, next season. So it's going to be interesting to see what his motivation is, because again, he's Marquette's leading scorer. He's the best player in the team. And, what we saw last season with Isaiah Coleman, who was in a similar situation for Seton Hall, is that while Coleman did have some big games in Big East play, Coleman definitely had his struggles being the man for Seton Hall in most of Big East play last season.
Well, Chase Ross, obviously his usage rate is through the roof, but does he get the PJ Haggerty kind of exposure that they did to Kansas State? He was leading scorer and they shut him down. Does he get abused by Seton Hall's defense? I tend to think he is going to shut down here because I think Seton Hall's defense is that good. Tim, your take on the defense against Chase Ross?
I think given that, his recent trends, Chase Ross is trending downward, and Seton Hall's defense, they put the clamps down on PJ Haggerty, and
Jason Edwards, right?
Yeah. Let's be honest with each other. PJ Haggerty and Chase Ross are not. They're not of equal stature. Like, that's just a cold hard fact, and no disrespect either. But if they could do what they did to PJ Haggerty, it's gonna be a similar result, if not more profound, with Chase Ross. And look at what I pointed out is how bad his numbers have been over this 4-game losing streak. And now you're going up against the Seton Hall defense, known as one of the best in the country, executing game plans well. And really, and I trust that Ryan Whalen and the rest of Shah's assistants, they know what they're doing and with the scout team and getting them ready to guard guys like Ross and even, a stretch guy like Ben Gold, who it's surprising to see him being a senior on this team and not being as impactful of a player that he should be. He's a senior, for crying out loud. He's been there, done that. So it is kind of shocking that, Pat pointed out that he didn't start against Creighton. So guys like him got to step up, but especially Ross, given how poorly he's played over the last couple weeks.
All right, we're going to go around the horn. We don't normally do this, but we're going to do it this time. Score prediction. I know you guys did it, I think, that one time that I wasn't on the show with you guys. And then your player of the game. I'll go first so I don't cheat off you guys. 74-59, us. And I believe the player of the game will be A.J. Stanton-McCray. Pat? Tim, who wants to go?
I don't think it's going to be that far different from your prediction there, Brian. I'm going to go 78-58. I hate to say we might put a 20 spot on Marquette, which is a shocking thing to say given the beginning of the season. But that's just the way it goes. And I think this is a night that Stephon Payne gets some redemption from his poor performance against Villanova.
This is a little tricky. It could go. I'm actually kind of shocked that you guys are seeing it as like a 15-point win.
They can't score. That's their problem. They can't score. They're
not efficient. I think that's your point, Brian. It's not that they can't score. It's that they're not efficient offensively.
Yeah. Well, anytime they play a talented team, they struggle shooting the ball. And you're playing against the best defense you've seen all year. We're not. This isn't a Georgetown defense. This is Seton Hall. This is like a legit defense.
Yeah, I think some's telling me Marquette is gonna just fight hard and make this a game. I'm trying to think of the exact score. Marquette's just gonna find. I don't know. I think they're just gonna find a way just to make it interesting, and Seton Hall has just got to dig deep and find a way to win. And I think they will win this game. But Marquette is going to – just to cover my butt so that, if I say they're going to get blown out and it ends up being a lot closer, I don't get get lit up by Marquette fans or whoever else because now everything we're saying is on the record and it's, people are going to just screen record or whatever they want to do for leisure and to each their own. Like, I'm not – it's fair game. I'll give you that. But – I think final score, Seton Hall, I think they win by 5. 73-68.
Who's the player of the game?
Player of the game. Stanton-McCray it's an interesting pick, but I got to go Bud Clark. I think his bounce back game, I think he's going to, take what happened last week personally. And I think he's going to eat up this freshman point guard for Marquette for lunch. We'll see what happens.
Sounds good. So all three of us, we're in the 70s. Tim, you're the only one saying Marquette's going to score at least 60.
Given their offensive numbers, I think they can put some points up on the board, but I think Seton Hall is just not going to allow them to score at a really high level. It's 68 is still 9 points below their scoring average for the season. So I think that trend will stay the same, but I think Marquette's just going to I think they perform better offensively on their home court. So I think that's why I have their score a little more elevated.
Fair enough. All right. When we come back, we will talk about Tony Bozzella's squad and the women's team as they took on Xavier today. Xavier, sorry. I pronounce it like I'm from the South. Xavier today and a rebound after playing Villanova right here on Big East Energy Network. Welcome back. Obviously, they already rebounded. They played Creighton. We didn't talk about Creighton. So they're on a 1-game win streak before entering today, and they won a 20-point game. Pat, you were there. You were at Walsh today. What was the vibe? This is Pirate vibes, right? What was the vibe with the women's team before the game?
I think going into, you've got the 2 games at home, the game today and then the game Wednesday against Georgetown before they head up to Gamble Pavilion on Saturday against Connecticut.
Yep.
So I think the game that really helped them a lot was the win at Creighton, because that was a game they were talking a lot about. That was a game, we've talked a little bit about what will the real Creighton Blue Jays please stand up. We thought that they had positive momentum after they beat St. John's the first week of December, but it turned out that Seton Hall was pretty much in command of that game last Monday afternoon. An unlikely source, Shaylin Pinckney, went off for, I think it was a career high in that game on Monday afternoon. Who Pinckney was in and out of the lineup for Seton Hall, and she's had her minutes go up and down. But having a game like she did on Monday afternoon against a team, a Creighton team again, which again, this has been a house of sort of horrors for Seton Hall. Pinckney had 21 points on 8 of 10 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3, and that came out of nowhere, because I'm not sure how many points Pinckney had scored in the month of December leading into that game. And obviously, she was a major factor in giving Seton Hall the big lead. Obviously, Mariana Valenzuela had a big game on Monday for Seton Hall. Jada Eads had a big game. Giordano Cudio had a big game coming off the bench on Monday. So I think that made them feel good heading into this stretch of 3 games in 6 days coming up now. So going into the game, obviously Seton Hall was feeling good about themselves, getting that win against Creighton on Monday, when, again, it's a game that they've talked about. For them to say all season, I remember Cam Rust in my interview with her said the 2 games that she was looking forward to were Marquette and Creighton. Yeah. And I'm like, you're talking about a team I didn't say this obviously to her, but you say a team that's predicted to be like 7th or 8th in the Big East, and you're telling me this is the game that Coach Bozzella has circled on the calendar. But I think that's A, a testament to Jim Flannery and his team, and B, a testament to how hard it's been for Seton Hall to beat Creighton. And yet they did it fairly. And again, they struggled a little bit in the last couple of minutes of the game on Monday, but they had enough of a cushion where, they were able to sort of just cruise into that victory heading into the game this afternoon.
Talk about this afternoon. Obviously, it was a 30-27 game at halftime. Probably a little bit closer than what Tony Bozzella expected. Xavier was predicted, I believe, to be 11th place in the coaches poll in the Big East Media Day. Did they seem tight? I watched the game until halftime, and then I watched a little bit before we got on here. But it seemed like they were tight in the first half. Is that something to say? Like, it just seemed like they were off just a little bit.
It took a while for Eads and Catalan to get their foot. I'm not even sure Jada Eads got her footing at all this afternoon. She did a lot of other things well. I think she had 4 rebounds. She had 7 assists, but she had
one. DeFalco talked about her ankle like the entire game.
Yeah, she gets banged up all. I mean, just unfortunately, when you're 5'7", you just and you play as hard as she does, you're going to have. She's just had nicks and bruises probably since the middle of November, probably since she got off the plane in California about a month and a half ago. But she still guts it out. And again, credit to Pinckney for picking up the slack, taking the ball up and running the offense, particularly in that fourth quarter of this game when Seton Hall sort of opened things up a little bit. Obviously, Valenzuela had another 16 points and 10 rebounds, and Savannah Catalan was unconscious, particularly in that stretch in the fourth quarter where it was, I think, a 4-point game at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and then Seton Hall stretched it out to 16, 18, and then 20 points. Had 19 of her 24 points today after halftime, and just every time she got the ball from 3-point range, the scoreboard operator might as well just put the 3 on the board, the way Catalan was playing in that fourth quarter of that game. So, that's again a good win against a better Xavier team than you might think.
Yeah.
They have some players on that team. I mean, they've already beaten Providence, which getting a Big East win early in the season is a big deal for Xavier. Yeah. I think they're going to pick off a few more teams along the way. But luckily for Tony Bozzella, they took care of business in the fourth quarter of this game.
Tim, anything you want to add on to this? I know you're catching up kind of like I am.
So, Pat, I actually went back and saw, try to get an idea of how many points, to answer your question about how many points Pinckney had in the month of December prior to Monday. 9. The entire month of December, 9 points, and then went off for 21 in Omaha. And for the season before that game, she had 27 points and then scored nearly as many points in that game as she had every other game before that. A desperately needed performance, considering that Bishop and Messiah Hunter weren't at their best, 2 of their 5 starters, and you get Pinckney stepping up as well as Codio. That's a massive help. And let's talk about Xavier for a second, because they've been so bad this decade as a program, especially, towards the end of the Melanie Moore era, right before Billy Chambers, former Iona coach, took over. Yeah, they were in a really, really bad spot. But at the end of last season, they beat DePaul in the Big East tournament, and they almost beat Seton Hall the very next day. And Xavier was the 11th seed. Seton Hall was the 3 seed. And if Seton Hall lost that game, I know they didn't make the NCAA tournament, but if they had lost that game, that would have really just given the selection committee, they look at that like, seriously, that team wanted to get in? So they ended the season on a real positive note. They have a lot of confidence, and they want to shock people, shock the naysayers in the regular season now compared to the Big East tournament. And so the fact that they already got that Big East win under their belt, that, like Pat mentioned, against Providence earlier this month, it bodes well. They're playing with a lot of confidence, and they're developing an identity, and they pushed Seton Hall for 3 quarters. And then the fourth quarter, they just took over, and they did what they were expected to do, which was to get a double-digit win and a 20-point victory at that against a team that, quite frankly, they're more talented than, they're more athletic, and more talented than Xavier. So they went out there and took care of business. And now, you talk about the last home game of in this little 2-game homestand, but the last home game in 2025 in Walsh Gym, for the Seton Hall squad against a Georgetown team that it's kind of similar to Providence, where you don't know which version of them you're going to get, but they looked really good early. Their net ranking was really high at the start of this, when the first net rankings came out, and now it's tumbled quite a bit. But today they beat Creighton relatively easily in McDonough Gymnasium down in our nation's capital.
It wasn't that easy, Tim. They gave 16-point lead, and Creighton had at least 2 chances to tie the game in the last 30 seconds. That's my thoughts. If we're going to transition a little bit, I know Brian wants to transition to Georgetown. Let's just jump into it now. Georgetown's intense. For most of the 40 minutes today, they basically had Creighton locked down. But then Kennedy Townsend found a range. Zeiker found her range. And, Georgetown did not. Georgetown, frankly, might have been lucky the clock ran out. The way that they just gave that game away in the last 6 minutes of it. So, again, Georgetown has its ups and downs. They lost to Villanova at home, which I guess there's no slight to losing to Villanova at home. But that's the type of, and again, they only beat Creighton by 2, meaning I think, again, that's a game where if Seton Hall does what Seton Hall's capable of doing and doesn't sort of sleepwalk. I mean, part of the problem with Bozzella's team through a good deal of this season has been they've taken almost whole quarters or quarters and a half off. I think the key to this team is play a full 40 minutes. Don't just sit there, particularly a game like today, where you don't want to let a Xavier team hang around because, God forbid, they hit a couple of fluky threes to keep it close. But they hit a couple more fluky threes in that fourth quarter, and we're not talking about a 20-point win today. So I think it's a matter of finding a way to get those full 40 minutes out of this team. I think they got a lot closer to it today. And they got let's say 36 or 35 good minutes against Creighton. And then I think I don't know if they got closer to that today, but I think it's key getting a full 40 going forward to make sure you rack up that number of Big East wins that you need in order to impress the selection committee in a couple of months.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just, why I misspoke on that, Pat? It's probably because, I probably saw your damn it, Pat, you outed me on that. But yes, you are correct.
You and I texted about how Georgetown was bullying Creighton.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that's when Creighton turned the switch on. And that 16-point lead becomes 8, becomes 6, becomes 3, becomes 2, and then.
In all fairness, I thought they killed Creighton today too, based off of Pat's text. So
thanks for the validation. I appreciate it.
But one thing, I don't know if you guys saw the presser today with Bozzella after the game. He talked about Valenzuela. He talked about how he challenged Valenzuela to get underneath the basket because she likes to sit on the threes. I think against Georgetown, that's going to be a problem. They've got Destiny Agubata, who is averaging quite a bit of rebounds. We need rebounding. Jada Eads can't be your second leading rebounder.
Yeah.
You talk about her being 5'7". She had the second most rebounds today with a bum or two bum ankles, right? She had 5 rebounds. The team needs to rebound. Where do you see that coming from? Because I think that's going to rear its ugly head, especially against UConn, teams like that, Villanova. Like, you've got to be able to rebound the ball. Do you see anyone else? Because Valenzuela played 35 minutes today. I think that's her season high.
Catalan.
You think Catalan's the one?
Catalan is so aggressive to the ball. I think
she only had 1 rebound today.
That was. But I mean, the flip side is it's not. I don't think. Let me make sure that they didn't lose the battle on the boards. I don't think they
didn't. It was 37-23. They won it. They won it.
Yeah, they won it. They won
the
battle on the boards pretty handily here. So
Kraft had 5. Kraft had 5 in 16 minutes.
Yeah. I'm again, but I think Catalan is generally pretty aggressive to the ball. Codio is 6'2", so although she doesn't like to mix it up. But again, this is the type of thing where you have 2 days for Bozzella to get into that room with those women and say, we've got to be 5 in on the defensive rebounds.
Yeah.
Because again, to sort of get back to it, we make this point about the men, but I think this also applies to the women, is that you don't need to have women breaking out in order to get transition baskets. I think with the quickness that Catalan and Eads and some of the other players on the team, Zahara Bishop can do this as well. They can get the ball up pretty quickly and get transition points. I mean, Valenzuela runs the court very well for a 6'2" woman.
And if she's a trailer, right? If you get it down there and you kick it right back out on her on top of the key, it's almost like it's money. Like every time she shoots the ball from the top of the key, like I feel like it's going in.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like you have to have a player go out in a fast break in order to get points. You can do it just simply getting the rebound and focusing on getting the rebound and getting it up the court as quickly as possible if that's what you want to do. And you might need to do that against a team like Georgetown because you don't want to be caught into a half-court battle with that team because they play aggressive defense. They don't have anybody who, jumps out the page at you the way that, let's say, a Jasmine Basco does, or Mariana Knoll of Xavier, who had an off game today, by the way, and Kennedy Townsend of Creighton. They don't have anybody who's a scorer who jumps off the page. They have some nice players on their team. They certainly, if you look at the leading scorers of today's game for Georgetown,
Kia Miller and Destiny Agubata.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to put any of them in the category of all Big East, but it's not like they lack for offensive talent. It's just that they don't have anybody again. But that could also be an issue because you can't key in on one player. Everyone on Seton Hall has to play defense.
Yep.
from the Eads and the Catalans down to the Bishops and the Codios and the Messiah Hunters and the Shaylin Pinckneys and some of the other, and Valenzuela. They all have to play defense. They all have to focus on the woman, because anybody on that Georgetown team is capable of having a big scoring performance.
Another thing. Oh, go ahead, Tim. I see you.
Yeah. The one thing, in terms of, their offensive capabilities, the one big thing to point out with them, their perennial 3-point sniper, Victoria Rivera, she's been out since her last game played was December 13th. So she's been out of action for a couple weeks now. And, her bread and butter was a weapon for Georgetown. If they needed a 3-point bucket, they could turn to Victoria Rivera, but they don't have her at their disposal anymore. And this isn't Georgetown ain't known for offense. And I Coach Haney from the Hoyas, he won't mind telling you that. Like, they don't need offense to win games. They can wear you down defensively, but if they need to score the ball, they can, and they could, like they did today against Creighton. But their style of play is very defense heavy, and they like to win those rock fights. They like to win those ugly games, and they want to try to make Wednesday's game at Walsh very much like that. So I'm interested to see for Georgetown what scoring option they can turn to have a big game to counter, big scoring outing from a Jada Eads or Savannah Catalan or even a Jordana Codio off the bench. But to go back to the rebounding, who I'm going to call upon to try to crash the glass a little more? Messiah Hunter. She's one of the tallest players on the team at 6'2". And she's averaging less than 2 rebounds per game. And that's in about an additional minute more than she averaged last year. And in 15 minutes compared to the 16 minutes she's averaging now, she averaged 2.5 rebounds. So with Hunter's size, I'm going to challenge her now the way that Bozzella challenged Valenzuela to crash the glass. I'm going to put that challenge out to Messiah Hunter. And obviously, I mean this in a more, I expect and want more out of you to be great. So go out there and be great and win the battle on the boards and, rack some up in order to win the rebounding battle in a nitty-gritty type game that you're going to get yourself into against Georgetown. That's not opinion about what kind of game that is going to be with Georgetown. Anyway, that's a cold hard fact. That's how this is going to be Wednesday.
Well, I want to say they kind of play like Shah, right? They play kind of like Seton Hall on the men's side, where there's not going to be that one guy or one girl that is going to score 25 points, but they're all going to share the ball. They're going to move the ball, and they're going to play. All 5 are going to play defense. So they got to basically take on the men's team, that kind of style. Quick shout out against Creighton. Destiny Agabata went 10 for 10 from free throw line. Kia Miller, they lived at the free throw line. They had 20 points at the free throw line. So that's one big thing. One thing I would like to pound out, and I know, Pat, you didn't hear the announcing. Lauren DeFalco at the end of the first quarter was talking about how Savannah Catalan draws fouls against an aggressive team like Georgetown. That's a big deal if you can get them in foul trouble. Catalan against Xavier drew 11 fouls, which was crazy because Lauren talked about it right at the end of the first quarter. And then the second quarter, like, she picked up 4 right away. Like, Xavier was fouling her every single time she touched the ball, but she drew 11 today. Is that the secret sauce to beat Georgetown? Is to go after them and make them follow you and then live at the free throw line?
Oh, I think that's very important. And, Catalan, of course, hitting 84% of her foul shots. Very good foul shooter. Eads historically has been a pretty good foul shooter. She's at 81% of the season. Bishop's at 86% for the season. So, and Cudio's at only 67, but maybe not quite as many trips to the line as the first 3 women I just mentioned. So, yeah, I mean, because that's the type of thing. Haney's going to play every possession to the death. So even if Seton Hall gets a 10-point lead in the closing minutes, Haney's going to force them to make sure they verify that win at the foul line, because Haney's going to try to steal some points from the foul line on Wednesday. So it's important that these women, whatever women are on the court on Wednesday afternoon, make sure they hit their foul shots to maintain a lead.
Fair enough. Anything else on the women before we go to everyone's favorite segment, the Sign Mafia? Pat, you got anything? You got a prediction? Are we doing a prediction now? Like,
I would hope that we win. I don't want to go too far. I don't have any analytics to make a prediction. We are a better team than Georgetown, and if we put the effort out there, we should be able to get another big dub to get the 4-1 in conference play.
You talk about the analytics. Our net ranking is only one ahead of them right now, as of going into today. Right? Isn't that what we discussed? Right?
Yeah, we talked about that off the show. I don't know if that's going to change. I suspect ours will go up a couple of points because of the margin of victory, as opposed to Georgetown only winning by 2 points. But again, there's still a game. I guess both teams still have at-large hopes, and both teams are hoping that if they can rack up enough Big East wins. Georgetown's on a little bit more of a hold than Seton Hall right now in that category. So that's something where to stay within. Georgetown right now is probably more or less playing for staying out of the Friday afternoon opening day at the Big East tournament in March, whereas Seton Hall right now is pretty comfortably safe from dropping out of the Saturday quarterfinals. So right now, Georgetown would like to pull themselves closer to staying out of that Friday triple header.
Tim, any prediction, anything before we go to your time to shine?
I think Seton Hall wins this game. I think they win probably by double digits, but I think it's probably more in like the 12, I'll say, 13 to 15 range. I think somewhere in the low teens, they'll win this game. But Georgetown, they're going to make this game ugly, and Seton Hall, I know that they like to put the ball in the basket and play a more up-tempo style. But I think Georgetown, I think Seton Hall is going to have to learn how to win games multiple ways and drag them out, rock them, sock them type of game. They got to learn to win a game like that because, in the Big East tournament, when scoring will probably become at a premium where teams really rack up the defense, not rack up, where they ramp up the defense. That's when these low-scoring games, like the game against Xavier in the Big East tournament quarterfinals, where they almost lost. I think you got to win a game like this against the Hoyas, and I think they will in a relatively comfortable fashion, more similar to a lesser extent what we saw today, where they were able to have a good, solid fourth quarter to pull away and win. I got to win it by. I think 14 is a fair margin to put them at right now for that.
Pat, you think 14?
I'm going to go closer to 10. I think that, again, I don't think you run away and hide from Georgetown. But I do think that Seton Hall does have more talent. And I think that, I think this is the type of game that Eads and Catalan should take over late.
The stat to watch out for, all the losses, Cudio, when she shoots below 40%, they've lost every game. Just to let you know.
Good numbers.
I know she's coming off the bench and everything, but if she's out there gunning and taking too many shots and her shooting percentage is down, she's got to be efficient. And she was efficient against Creighton. She's 5 for 10. Xavier, she was 5 for 9. Villanova, she was 1 for 5. I think her efficiency kind of, it's because you need that third, right? If we're talking Eads and Catalan, right, you need that third player that can score. I know Valenzuela can score. I know Bishop could score, but Cudio's kind of been that third wheel since the beginning and I just look forward to that efficiency. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
I'm not going to put a score because every time I do anything with this women's team, prediction-wise, it blows in my face. So I'm not saying anything publicly. I'll text you guys mine. All right, when we come back on Pirate Vibes right here in the Big East Energy Network, everyone's favorite segment, Sign Mafia. All right, Tim, take it away. We've been waiting. This is the first one after Christmas, last one of 2025.
Yes, sir. And because of that, I think it's only appropriate we talk about New Year's resolutions. So, take it in. I know everyone's got their New Year's resolutions, and I know I've got my own personal ones, but just thought I'd point out that, it's been X amount of weeks since we talked about, oh, we got to come up with a nickname for ourselves. Like what's our group name? And here we are, a few days away from the calendar turn to 2026, and that still hasn't happened yet. So I think one of the first items on my to-do list will be coming up with our nickname that will be sticking unless someone somehow, some way has something better. I got to be the one that steps in and puts the nickname in stone for us. So, and again, like the sign says, not just with the nicknames, making sure that I not only do better with slogans, nicknames, and the signs as well, but also try to maintain a level of consistency where I'm not like phoning it in one episode to the next. So I try to stay on a consistent level. I know I've had some bangers and others I've kind of phoned it in because maybe just not as much material to work with. But I will, I'll pat myself on the back for a couple things like AJSM. I feel like I was particularly very proud of that one because I know that it's like ASMR, I feel like was partially the inspiration behind it. But yeah, AJSM just felt so much better, especially because AJ State McRae, it's a mouthful. So AJSM, as well, to quote two different Office characters, Michael Scott, his advice for Dwight, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And Kevin Malone once talked about his mechanic, how he doesn't speak English, but he's able to communicate with him about his car and whatnot. And his famous quote, why say lot word when few word do trick?
I just, a question. Do we know if Matt was disappointed he didn't get a sign on Tuesday night?
I didn't even ask him.
Oh, okay. Well, we need to find out if Matt was disappointed in his first appearance with Tim, whether he didn't get a sign to pop up. I don't know.
They connected on the Seinfeld references.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Matt quite. I don't think It was interesting to see Matt, working with us on Tuesday, which was a great episode. I don't know if Matt would quite understand our dynamic. A little bit different. It's a little bit different than his dynamic down at Holy Nova. It's different than everyone else's dynamic, to be perfectly honest. But I think Tim does a great job with whatever sign. I remember the Little Apple. What happens in the Little Apple will tell you what happened in the Big Apple. I thought you hit a home run with that one. Yeah. I hope that carries over. So I think that's something I'll see. I'll be curious to see what Tim workshops between now and when he brings his next sign out. Maybe that's the tease for the next time he brings a sign out, that he brings out the nickname. Sort of like when we found out what Cosmo Kramer's first name was. We could hype that up as the cat's out of the bag, so to speak. So I think I think that the sign mafia has been great. I know that's something which keeps people watching. And if they sat through 54 minutes of us talking about how bad things are at Marquette and how Seton Hall the Seton Hall women have to rebound against Georgetown, I'm sure that this sign mafia segment made everyone happy.
Yeah. So the last thing I'll say is I actually shared a meme with one of my good friends who is one of my brother's best friends. I actually officiated his wedding down in Virginia. I sent him a meme of and the caption, the expression of the person was like, and the caption was, and I feel like this is me in terms of every time we record, which is, damn, I got to be hilarious again tomorrow. And I feel like that is my role, and I am more than happy in that role of bringing the humor and just let's get weird vibe to the show with obscure references and incredibly useless information in the real world. But like that's my role. That's what I'm here to do, and I go out there and do it damn well.
I'll tell you one thing, Tim. Nobody else on this network has that type of dynamic. You go up and down the line on this network. The only thing which comes close is my guy, Nick. I wish I remember his last name now. Nick at the Pod is the Nick and Andy are the only two that come really close. Up and down the rest of the line, most of those guys are so darn serious about their podcasts and about their teams that, you know, we get here and we get Tim dropping in Office references or Seinfeld references or Sopranos references, and this just blows the cover off the ball of anything else on the Big East Energy Network. So if you want a sense of humor with your basketball analysis, Pirate Vibes is the place to be.
Damn right.
That's a great way to end it. But I will throw out this one suggestion that I've heard from the community for a nickname. The Vibers.
Oh. I think it's something better. Because I know who calls us that, and no, I don't want to. What's the word?
Anyways,
it sounds like a derogatory term.
Yeah, that we know who that's. We know who. I don't want to dignify that with by tagging that on. Like we can do better than that.
No.
Leave your suggestions below in the comment. We'll workshop them. We've been working on this for 3-4 months now, so why not continue the trend?
First episode of 2026. It will be done. I promise.
That's a big promise. All right, this is Pat Madden, Tim Best, Brian Webster on Pirate Vibes for the Big East Energy Network. Stay true, stay blue, and vibe on.
Ahoy there!